Warm greetings. Welcome to Wednesdays for Water. We are a citizens collective aiming to walk and talk water. We try to meet every week and connect people with various water worries and wisdoms. And in the process, we wish to curate future water warriors. The way we talk about trivial things for hours, water too needs walking and talking to address the rising water distresses. The way Wednesdays for Water is conceptualized as a prime time show, it wishes to make water everybody's business. The idea of the series was conceptualized in August 2020, and by the end of the year, the team and the structure was pretty much in shape. We started in April 2021 with Dr. Rajendra Singh's inaugural speech. We wish to bring science and society together, and therefore we try to bring in every session either a policymaker or practitioner and a researcher or academician. We also think that future generation is crucial and therefore they have presence in each session. We are going stronger with every week now with session on either quiz, couple of weeks of hard talks and a week of soft session of art and music. There is a simple structure for each session of quiz, hard session and soft session, which are moderated by the core team member. Here is a glimpse of what we call as hard sessions and soft sessions. Good evening and Happy New Year to all of you, and a very warm welcome to one more session of Wednesdays for Water. Today we also start our 9th month of Wednesdays for Water session. So we are extremely delighted to really run this far, and we are very thankful to all our participants who join us every Wednesday to really support and also learn from each other. Today we have a very well-known professor and one of my mentors, of course, Dr. Anil Gupta. He has a very long list of achievements as well as his resume speaks, but we have discussed and I'm going to keep it short, but to
very
celebrate.
Short. Very short.
Yes, very short. Even the short will be not so short, but we are really grateful to have you here, sir. And just to give you a background before I talk about you, that on 29th of December, we had Grassroot Innovations Part 1, where we had Dr. Anil Joshi to speak on water systems and how he looks at water, and he touched upon the spiritual as well as morality aspects of it. So we had a long discussion in our core team to discuss how we can weave in both of you together to talk about grassroots innovations in water management. And knowing your extensive work in the field, I don't think I could have really requested anyone else than you to come and start the year for us. So many of you know him very well, but as a custom, I would like to talk a little bit about Professor Gupta. I know him since I have come to Ahmedabad in 1995. I must be honest. He is a thinker, teacher, activist, but most importantly, I think mentor and, someone who you can look up to for even charting your own path. He is almost a lifetime member, I must say, of IIM Ahmedabad, but apart from that, he is teaching at many, many institutions. The list is long to talk about. He has written extensively, and he has been cited extensively. And one of his books, which goes round and round, and which is also the genesis of why we wanted to have him here, is his book on grassroots innovations. Minds on the margin are not the marginal minds. And to add to it, I must say that he has been extensively working on SRISHTI, which is a very well-known NGO which looks at grassroots inspirations, gets children, gets vulnerable community, gets women on board, talk about it. Then he also went on to actually become the founding member, and in fact, the brainchild was his when he laid the foundation of National Innovation Foundation, which also helps the people get the patents of their innovations. He is also founding member of the Grassroots Innovation Augmentation Network. If you are unaware of it, please look at it. It's a very good platform, which is called GIAN, and it is also by the Government of India. And one of my favorite work, which he has been doing extensively, where I was almost about to join him, and I hope to join him in future, that's Honeybee Network. I think many of you know from his Honeybee Network work, but I'm trying to tell all other things which are also affiliated with his uh, development as a mentor, you know. Another important and also one of another favorite things which I also try to really learn from him and started Walk the Lake is his Shodh Yatra. He goes to the roots and really identifies people and sees what kind of jugaad innovation people are doing. I guess he was also one of the early people in the country talking about jugaad. So with
Not
these few
really, but
lines,
I'll talk about it later. Carry on,
yes,
carry on.
with these few lines, I could not do justice to his extensive work, but Shodh Yatra is something which I have always looked up to, how he conducts. He goes out to the most remotest area where nobody is trying to go or even have gone before. And he takes people there and talks about what kind of innovations people have really made for themselves to live sustainably and in a dignified way. And one thing which also binds us together is the Ostrom connection. So he is a Vincent Ostrom person and I am Eleanor Ostrom person. So we both have the Ostrom connection also. So sir, as I mentioned to you earlier that this is the part 2 of Grassroot Innovations in Water Management, and you have extensively walked around the length and breadth of the country. We would like to learn from you what kind of innovations you have come across and where even the younger generation today, because you engage with them, that they should really dwell into to look for more grassroots innovations in water management. So welcome again to you, and really thankful from the entire team that you agreed to join us for this speech. And we will take some questions from all the participants who would like to. They can put up their questions also on the chat box, and later we will have interaction time. And before that, I would also like to really thank again to all the participants to make Wednesdays for Water 9 months old. So thank you so much, Anil sir, and floor is yours, and please take on. I hope you are allowed to share the screen
Yes,
now.
yes. There's no
Thank you
problem.
so much. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mansi. Thank you, Fawzia, and all other team members who are here. I'm extremely happy to be with you today to talk about both innovations and knowledge system about water management. Particularly, there's a sound coming in. Can you switch off? Can you switch off? Rajiv, can you switch off? Can you switch off, please? Yes. So kindly keep the mic switch off, please. Friends, this is an issue which is very important because the way we conceptualize the role of water influences both our perception of creativity at the grassroots and other levels, and also our policy response. And I will take some time in the end to share about some of the measures we could take urgently at our level. What government should do, surely there's a lot that government need to do. But there's a lot that we can do ourselves at our individual level, at our institutional level, and at our platform level. So the overall philosophical background of what I'm going to share and always have learned from is about Honeybee Network. A nameless, faceless person comes in contact with the network and gets an identity. So we look for innovations that are hidden, that are not apparent, that are not visible, and give them voice, visibility, and velocity. Voice, visibility, and velocity. Voice is given by ensuring that whenever we talk about innovations, in as many cases as possible, they should be acknowledged by name and address of the people. Visibility by bringing them to the surface, by sharing them, by cross-pollinating ideas from one community to another, and of course, across the platform, such as the platform of Wednesday.for.Water today, where we will share some of the activities, some of the lessons that we have learned. And velocity is by molding policies, by molding processes, by providing, if possible, support to the innovations, by linking the golden triangle of Gyan, which is innovation, investment, and enterprise, where possible. Enterprise could be institutional, cultural, economic, or even social. And the purpose is really to help people learn from each other, acknowledge each other. People should not become anonymous, and whatever we do should go back to them in a fair manner. So that is how the network works. And let me show you this picture. I don't know if any one of you can recall. Do you know where this picture was used? Anybody has any idea at all? I can see on the chat if somebody puts a name. Anybody knows where was this picture used extensively by Government of India? Any idea? Well, if you don't know, let me tell you.
Tourism.
Yes?
Sir, tourism.
Exactly. It was used to invite tourists to see the shame of our country. Can you imagine any country which will like people to come from all over the world and show them the inertia of our society, the civilizational inertia, the shame that this picture reveals of a lady going in on sand dunes in hot, arid environment, carrying water on her head. Now, this is only what can happen in our country. Nobody else, people will do that. But in any case, this is a blot on our consciousness. And I thought I should begin with this so that we recognize that it is not enough to learn about what people know, but also to learn about our own perceptions. How do we see the role of people who suffer from water constraints, water shortages, who have to go miles and miles? And therefore, this provides a contrast. And I will try to carry forward several stories of paradoxes. Paradoxes are very important for learning because they help us to see the reality through contradictions. So we have Shodhyatras in different parts of the country. We walk in summer, winter, and autumn. Summer and winter with the help of any volunteer, anybody who wants to come with us. In autumn, I take my students from IMA to Himalaya. And we learn from, we try to do 4 things here: search innovations, spread innovations, celebrate innovations, and send the unmet needs. And in the process, of course, we learn from 4 teachers. A teacher within, so our own reflections of our own consciousness, our own conduct, our own contradictions, our own hypocrisy, our own paradoxes. Teacher around in the peers, and teacher in nature, and teacher among common people. Now, obviously, not everybody will learn equally from all teachers, doesn't matter really. But the fact that we are sharing what we are learning helps us to understand the paradoxes of our society. So let me begin with a story of 2,000-year-old. The discussion on water actually started 2,000 years ago. And mind you, 2,000 years ago, there was no shortage of water. A settlement of 5,000 was called as Nagar, a city. 5,000 people, because population was much lesser at that time. And enough water was there because civilization evolved on the banks of river and the tanks. So where was the need to talk about what I'm going to share with you? But nevertheless, some teachers have foresight. They can see far into future. And this teacher I'm going to talk about saw what would happen in 2019, 2021, way back in 2nd century BC, or 1st century BC. So what did he do? This teacher asked a student to bring a glass of water. So the student went, brought a glass of water. He took the water. And let me just take some water to show you how it happened actually. He gave the glass back to the student. The student went to the kitchen, kept the glass back. He called him back. What did he do? Sir, you asked me for a glass of water. I brought the glass of water. You took the water. I went and kept the glass in the kitchen. No. Tell me, what did you do? He asked, and the student repeated the answer. He asked, and the student repeated the answer. When I think he asked about 7th or 8th time, student said, now I know what I did. Okay, tell me, what did you do? Sir, you asked me for a glass of water. I brought the glass of water. You took the water. And then you gave me the empty glass. While going back, I threw just a drop of water. And the moment he said just a drop of water, which he threw on the ground, he got his Zen, he got his liberation from the ignorance. A drop of water which he threw on the ground is what the teacher was drawing attention to. This could have been dropped in the trough for birds to drink water, to a place where the plants were growing. It could have quenched the thirst of a bird, or for the matter, squirrel, or an ant. Why was he talking about this 2,000 years ago? Because he anticipated that if we were not conscious of the role water plays in our life, we might face this problem sooner than 2,000 years ago, actually. He had the foresight. But we, in our anxiety to show our lavishness, our abundance, we don't care about it. If you ask me, I would wish every institution, be it IMA, be it TERI, be it any institution, IITs, IIMs, any institution, they should put on their wall outside a water budget. How much of rain they got, how much did they store, rainwater, roof water, or rainwater underground, how much of water did they recycle, how much of water did they repurpose, did we use fresh water for irrigating lawn, as it unfortunately happens in IMA, or do they use the treated water of the kitchen and the bathroom for lawns? This data must be displayed on the wall of every building in this country so that we become conscious of the way we are dealing with water. You know, when I joined IMA in 81, water table was about 200 feet. And it dropped at the rate of about 10 to 12 feet every year in the last 40 years. So you can imagine how much water table has gone down. And this is, I'm talking about the institutions which are well endowed, which are aware. I'm being very self-critical because I'm sharing this, that unless I contradict, unless I criticize myself and my conduct, I don't think I will be able to convey the seriousness of the matter that we're facing. It's very important that we recognize that there is a strong need for even saving a drop of water. And this is what we found in our Shodhyatra in Mizoram. A drop was dripping from this tap here, just a drop. And this person was so conscious of this drop, thankfully, put a canister here. And in the whole day, when the tap is not being used, the water will get collected here. And he will use this water for irrigating plants or filling the trough for animals or whatever. So it is not that everything is lost. And I'm going to show you more examples. There are places in this country, I will call them as a water capital of India. If really you ask me, I will call Mizoram as a water capital. Look at what they do. Almost every house in Mizoram has a rooftop water harvesting system. Every house. They will have these bamboos leading the water from the roof to the funnel here and then steering it into this. They will cover it. And this is how the water is stored. Almost every house. Actually speaking, as a public policy student, I would say that if you have to discuss water conservation strategies, I would suggest to Mansi and Shaji and all of you, the Fazia and all of you, that have a meeting in Mizoram. Sit with them. What happened was, after the disturbances were, controlled, and Indian forces somehow persuaded people to move from the valleys where they used to live to the higher altitude, there was no water there. Water was in the valleys. They were moved from valleys to the highlands. And thankfully, the wisdom of the elders made them realize that if they didn't save the rainwater, there wouldn't be water around. This region does get a lot of rainfall. And that's how Mizoram became the water capital of India. You wouldn't find it mentioned in a literature or public policy document, unfortunately. But if you have a water conference, have it in Mizoram. Because I personally believe that whenever we want to bring about change, and that too in case of water, we must go to the places where there is an outstanding institution or outstanding innovation or outstanding practice of doing what we all want to say, because then the ambience of that place itself will mold our mind to think a little more constructively in solving this problem. Let me give you another example. All of you must have seen this hand pump. The country has millions of these hand pumps. A very bad design though. So when you drink water with the hand pump, your hand cannot hold the water which is coming out of, let's say, 1.5 inch diameter. That's why you must have seen in coolers, we have about 2 centimeter, 1.5 centimeter output. That much water we can hold in our mouth or in our hand. So I was discussing this question in my class. I was talking to some of the innovators, and the combination of ideas from Swayambhu Sharma from Rajasthan and Chandan Agarwal from my class, they both combined, and Yusuf and another innovator went in Rajasthan and deployed it. 100 rupees retrofitting solution, 100 rupees retrofitting solution. You put this small section here in an existing hand pump. There is a small tap here for drinking and a bigger one for filling bucket. And if still some water overflows, this is the arrangement. So the cattle can drink the water from the trough. Now, this is inclusivity of innovation, not just for human beings, but also non-human sentient beings. You know, I want to tell you something, small digression here, because I've walked in every state of the country, in many places twice. There's only one district where we found open access watering points kept by the people, farmers or other people, almost every few kilometers. And that was Mahendragarh district in Haryana. Nowhere else we came across so many drinking water points. So people will take a picture, keep a glass or a dabba there, cover it with thatch so that it remains cool. In summer, there is a strong tradition in Mahendragarh district of Haryana for offering water to strangers. Why has this culture not grown everywhere else? And I will tell you something again, very paradoxical. In cities, I don't know whether Terry has a water drinking point on its wall outside its office or not, but in IMA, we now have, in 2017, when I was getting retired, there was a farewell party, and the director, who was also my former student, Ashish, asked me, Anil, is there anything that we can do to make it more memorable? I said, yes. I have mentioned this to many people, but they haven't cared. If you do it, I'll feel very happy. And there were 2 days more to my retirement, 28th April, and I was going to retire on 30th. I said, many people come, poor people come to our gate, they pass by our wall, and they can't afford a water bottle of 10 rupees or 15 rupees. Can we have high quality drinking water point outside our wall so that anybody passing by can drink, the vendors, the other people? And I tell you, by 30th April, this was done. And if you come to IMA, you will find a drinking water point, filter, cold drinking water point outside our gate. Small gesture, which I feel very proud of. And why can't every institution do it? Why can't we make even drinking water accessible to people who can't afford to buy the bottle? So I'm just saying that inclusivity in rural areas, inclusivity cities, requires some changes that we can bring about. We don't have to wait for government to do that. I mean, this is minimum in our country, in our culture. Offering water to a thirsty person is considered the most pious act. पुण्य का काम बोलते हैं पानी पिलाना प्यासे को. इससे अच्छा पुण्य नहीं होता, इससे अच्छा कोई good act नहीं होता. And yet, we have so much of shortage of such water points. So it's very important. Nobody would have imagined, even 10 years ago, that people had to drink water at the cost of 10 or 15 rupees a liter. But that's the situation what it has come to. And it will be going to get worse with multi-rise buildings, as you can see all over metros and big cities, including Ahmedabad. Water table is going to go down at a rate unprecedented. Of course, you can bring water from Nanda here and there, but still the water shortage will remain. And the tragedy is that as you go down the ground, the quality of water goes down. So you get more salts, which are harmful to us, because those At that level where we go, it is sometimes fossil water, water held between the rocks. It is not water which is getting recharged by rain. So it's very important that we recognize, then we try to talk about innovations for water. We also talk about innovations for water for not just human beings, but also non-human beings, strangers, people. Now let me give a few more examples of innovations that we have, and I will take another 10 minutes to finish what I'm going to say. Some of the things I'll just run through without explaining, so that most of you who are more knowledgeable in many respects will be able to find those references. So here is a very interesting idea. Mehtar Hussain and Mushtaq Ahmed did something interesting. Two brothers in Assam, Murigaon, did something interesting. They had a small field of paddy. They wanted to irrigate it. And they used a windmill, bamboo windmill, to pump a hand pump to irrigate. They did two things that the engineers, water engineers, will not do. The first thing they said is, does it matter whether we irrigate a paddy field in 4 hours or 40 hours? Answer was actually slower irrigation, more sustainable. If you give same amount of water in 40 hours, it will not help, it will not let the nutrients leach. Plants need moisture, not water. So 40 hours, slowly, hand pump, small little water will come out. Second, the hand pump has a single valve, so water comes in spurts. Does it matter whether water comes regularly, complete regular flow or irregular flow? Doesn't matter really. So hand pump made sense. Now, pick up irrigation handbooks, water management books, and tell me how many places will you find a concept of slow irrigation? And why have we not included in our pedagogical tools? Why don't we realize that plants don't need water, they need moisture? Slower irrigation is more sustainable irrigation. How do people manage in the field? They make the plot size bigger. So the same amount of water will spread in a bigger plot, will become slow. Once we were talking to one farmer in Jamnagar, and he had a farm laborer, Wala. His name was Wala. And we said, how do you irrigate? They were growing chili variety, which he had developed, Reshampato. He said, when I plant chili seedlings, I plant with left hand. Left hand is a little weaker, so roots don't go too deep. And secondly, I give slow irrigation. I said, how do you give slow irrigation? Sir, these roots are very shallow, and if I give fast irrigation, they will get uprooted. So I have to make a bigger plot size and release water slowly, little water. So it spreads slowly in the whole plot and water becomes slow. But if I release too much, it will spread very fast and inundate the fields. That laborer there, Mushtaq Ahmed in Assam, this laborer Wala in Jamnagar, they're both teaching me a concept which unfortunately our textbooks don't include, which is the concept of slow irrigation. You have heard about slow food. Food cooked slowly is more nutritious. And now I'm talking about slow irrigation. Simple idea. In Northwest, there's a crisis. Wheat rice rotation takes too much of water. A lot of leaching of nutrients. Productivity of inputs going down. You need more energy to get the same amount of water. All of those problems are there. Completely non-sustainable solution. And yet we don't realize that we need to provide only moisture and not water. So there are many such examples. I'll take a few more. Harbhajan Singh, a farmer in Haryana again, in Hisar, did something interesting. In cotton, there's a lot of pest problem. Almost 30 to 40% of pesticide in our country is used just in one crop, cotton. So he said, why do pests attack cotton so much? Because they get too much water. Succulence of the stem and the leaves becomes higher, and the insects find it easier to find it edible, attractive. So what should I do? So he said, let me give water alternate row. First experiment that he did. One row, so 1, 3, 5, 7, then 2, 4, 6, 8. So now you're giving 50% water. And the productivity actually was good. And less water means less pest attack, less pesticide use. Then he said, all right, next time what he did, he increased the spacing between the two rows and gave the water in between the two rows. So now the plant will have to send roots laterally where the water is. The soil, top layer of soil has more nutrients than the next layer of 4 inches. So top 2 to 3 inches has the 80 to 90% nutrients. So the roots are more going to the upper surface, upper layer of the soil. So they will get more nutrients, so plants will grow better, healthier. So that's a very sustainable practice, less water. Also, there are some indicator plants when to give water. So Bhaskar Bhai Save, one of the organic farmers in South Gujarat, he will grow croton around the field. Croton somehow senses the stress much faster. You don't have to use IoT tools and so on. I mean, this is a very effective indicator plant. Grow croton on this side, around the field. And the moment the leaves show slight shrinkage, you now know that plants need water. No need for very costly solutions. What did Prem Singh do? He realized that many times when electricity comes in the night, farmers are lazy, they switch on the pump set and don't switch it off. Water keeps flowing. Many places where there's a sprinkler irrigation, and I've seen that happening in Haryana, many places, the sprinkler is on. If the power comes at night, the sprinkler will keep irrigating, whether plants need that moisture or not. Doesn't matter really, wastage of water. So he made a mobile-based solution. Prem Singh from Yamunanagar made a mobile-based solution way back in 2001, 2002. Today you find many in the market. He was the pioneer. Just by making a particular call, and the receiver set will switch on the well, switch on the pump, and then switch off the pump. Mulching, of course, is a well-known traditional practice. Different kinds of mulches are used to prevent evaporation. So if you prevent evaporation, you conserve water, then you don't need so much water. Saline bottle-based drape, steps in the well. There's so many systems that we have. Vida is a very interesting system. In Kutch, you know, saline water, saline groundwater, saline soil. Saline groundwater, salty, brackish groundwater, and brackish soil. And you have to conserve drinking water. You know, it's very interesting. So this is a well. And after some time, when you open the well, it is covered with the soil, with the plants and soil. When you open it, after a few months, maybe 1.5 months to 2 months, through upcoming effect, the saline water will mix with this and it will become saline. So then Vida will become unuseful, not useful for the next season. But for 2 months, 1.5 months, that fresh water floating on the saline water is available to you for drinking and other purposes. The water oozes from the side. Rainwater leaches the salt down, and then water enters the field. There are many such practices. There are these chalas found in Rajasthan, underground tank, Bhandaras, in Karnataka. There are water streams which are tailored, ahar pines in Jharkhand. These are similar to khadins in Rajasthan, where you have 3-side small bund, and one side the water enters the system, and then it is stored there almost like in this manner. You store the water here in the field and then use it for irrigation. Or residual moisture is used for chickpea crop in the winter season. So you don't have to give any irrigation to chickpea then. Just residual moisture is enough. So like that, there are so many such models of structures in Ladakh. This is from Nagaland. This is Tamil Nadu. Different systems, bamboo drip irrigation system, Meghalaya. Meghalaya, we have seen amazing long distance they take it. Bandas, Rangam. Himachal, there are Kohls. You know, word Kohli comes from cool actually. They used to be the water managers. That's why they were called Kohlis in the olden time, when Himachal, Punjab, and all were part of the same one state. And so there was a lot of institutions. If you go to, I will share with you, if you go to SRISHTI.org/CPRI, and maybe let me show you this database. I hope I can share it with you. So there are practices of water conservation. You can find them all, how they use different kinds of mulches and so on. You can also see the database of common property resources. Let me show you. So this is because institutions are very important. So if you go to this database, you will find a lot of institutions here for water, for forest, for grazing, and from all around the world. I mean, there are about 200 institutions from Africa, Asia, China, Japan, Greenland, different kinds of water. You can search here and look at different kinds of indigenous irrigation systems from in Bihar, water managers, Nirkatis, and other people. So this is an open access database. All our databases are open access. You can easily find them. Why I am mentioning about common properties, let's conclude with that. So there are three principles very important for managing any resource, particularly water. Technology, institutions, and culture. Technology is like word, institutions are like grammar, culture is like thesaurus, variation on the theme. We need all the three for sustainable management of resources, all the three. If you have technology and don't have rules to govern management of resources collectively, then it will not work. If you have technology and institutions, but you have not drawn upon the cultural beliefs and consciousness of the communities, then things will erode very fast. The renewal of institutions, self-renewal, self-design will not take place. So all the three are important. And of course, if you want to bring the fourth, which is science, which is like alphabet, then we have to bring science and technology also in the management system so that we can use, sometime we can blend the tradition with the modern. Now, let me conclude by saying that what do we learn from various attempts that people have made, both in traditional knowledge system and the contemporary creativity, to conserve water, to augment water, to repurpose water, to distribute water. In Bhutan, I was once looking at this issue, and very interesting. So they have, let us say, there are 15 people in a lift irrigation, in a small stream managed irrigation system, who have to have their turns. So what will they do? They will write 1 to 15 on 15 sticks, shuffle them in their hand, and ask everybody to take out one stick. So let's say your field is very close to the head of the water, but your turn is 14. So you won't get water first. You will get water on 14th number. Somebody gets 6, they will get 6. And if somebody violated it, everybody will go and trample the bunds of that field so that the fellow will not be able to irrigate, because for irrigation, you need to have bunds. Without bunds, you can't irrigate. So that's a punishment. So in social capital and ethical capital, both are important. Social capital is where trust, reciprocity, and third-party sanction. Third-party sanctions are important. The group can sanction the behavior of individuals. In ethical capital, sanctions are from within. I punish myself, not somebody else. So, for instance, if you're not supposed to wash your clothes in the water, supposing you go in the morning when nobody is awake and you wash your clothes there, you have dirtied the water because that is supposed to be used for drinking. You can't do that. So one village in Srinagar, what did they do? They had 9 temples and 1 dargah. So from 10 directions, they had closed the possibility of somebody violating the rule. I mean, whichever god you believe in was a temple made of that god. So there were 9 temples, 1 dargah, 10 dashanan, you must have heard about, so 10 directions were, so to say, put guards there. Ethical guards were put, cultural guards were put there to prevent water from being violated. So the institutions play a very important role. Belief systems play a very important role. Our beliefs have become weaker now about both water use and water sharing. I'm a strong believer that if we do not provide clean drinking water to people who cannot afford to buy, then this consciousness of not being inclusive pervades in different ways. First you exclude poor, then you exclude animals, then you exclude others. Essentially, and the more exclusion we have, the less sustainable the system becomes, because we are all part of the same ecosystem. So let me say that it is important that while government can do a lot, I mean, in their policies for regulating water, I mean, we have not cared to bring regulation. In fact, now elections are coming and every party is trying to say, we will give free electricity. No need for regulation. You use as much water as you want. Are you being fair to them? Are you doing justice, or are you doing injustice to them? Of course, in the short run, everybody will be happy, but in the long run, our grandchildren would not get any water then. And their cost of getting same amount of water will increase enormously. The whole system will become non-sustainable. And we need to be conscious about it. And we need to raise our voice that this is not a fair demand. This is not a fair policy. Similarly, we should also try to encourage good science, which shows that with less water, you get more productive, less pest attack, more sustainable outcome than with more water. So thank you so much. And I'll be very happy if some of you join hands with the Honeybee Network, contribute from whichever region you are, wherever you are. When you come across an interesting innovation, do share with us. We'll give visibility, we will give voice, and we'll give velocity to those ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anil sir. Thank you so much for the enlightening session. You also walked us all over the country to tell us what's going on where with very interesting water innovations which are happening. For me, most important line from your talk, of course, the entire discussion was very, very enriching. And I have heard you quite a number of times. But for me, the most important line is that the more exclusion we do, the less sustainable we are in water system. In our democracy, if we continue talking about taking more water for all kinds of development and making half of the population strive for even a bottle or a liter of water, I think somewhere we have to really rethink, particularly those who are in the powerful positions and also the educated elites. I think another takeaway which you talk about using the triangle, both in Gyan and also today you talked about the culture, institution and technology, and you add to it the science, making it appear, diamond than the triangle. I think that's very important. Apart from that, the youth who are here, I think they have to really get into more understanding the two capitals which we have to really now as mentors and teachers have to talk more about in the classrooms than talking about the financial capital, and that is the social capital and ethical capital. Somewhere ethical capital needs to be really more discussed both in the classroom and in the ground. So I think these are very important takeaways at my end. Of course, apart from the technological innovations which you are showing. So I bring an important, idea taking from you that because we are going to complete 1 year, I'm just throwing an idea to all of you based on what he was talking about. Since we are already planning to celebrate 1 year of Wednesdays for Water, because I hope we are going to reach there. We have sessions already lined up till March. How about actually traveling somewhere with Professor Gupta and going to some place and really do something and celebrate the 1 year of Wednesdays for Water? With these lines, please put your comments and suggestions in the chat box. I would like to open the floor for interacting with Professor Gupta, and questions, suggestions, any ideas you have, please join. And I think you can unmute yourself and start talking. We don't have any restrictions. Maybe Fawzia, you would like to go, or if there is anyone.
No restriction. There's no restriction. So if there's anybody from the participant who would like to go first.
Yeah. Okay, please go ahead and raise your hand or ask questions, or if you like to interact directly.
Can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that talk. It was so amazing to know that now we have a whole a resource to look into. Like there's so much information on the websites that you were talking about, all the work and all the innovation that you've documented. And I will also consciously try and look for these innovations everywhere I go, because then it will make the archive more robust. And I'm personally working on wastewater treatment. It is an innovation which mimics the cow's stomach in underground chambers. You must be aware of the anaerobic system. So we basically set up these systems that work without power or chemicals and gives clean water. And the secret sauce we use there is cow dung. And I will write to you in greater detail on how that works. You must have seen these systems in the past. It's an improvisation of what we've been doing for years. What really stood out for me, really is like the inclusion aspect of it. Like when we design for all of life is then when we are closer to sustainability. And there is something that I think you're the perfect person to tell me how I should go ahead with a problem that I have at hand. I'm currently living in Goa, and here the water level is really high. And so the septic tanks are leaching into the groundwater and polluting it. But outside of that, while I'm taking these solutions to people, I was hoping that we'd engage with some children on, maybe now one of the tasks to do is to document some of these innovations in the neighborhood. But the concept of like water scarcity is not there in Goa, because here you get plenty water, right? So they keep the tap running, the motor. So what kind of narrative will, like you said, the drop of water, that one drop of water, but that is really not there in their conscience here in Goa, because there is water in abundance. Even fresh water you're getting at a very high, you don't need to dig very deep for water essentially. So, but what kind of narrative shall we take to people, bringing them closer to, conservation, to conserve the water?
Simar Kohli, your ancestors were cool managers. Remember
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Your great-grandfather must have been managing water channels in the mountains or in the uplands. Talk to your grandfather and your grandmother, and they will tell you that yes, Kohli's earlier were water managers.
It's true.
All right, so it's a good question that you ask. There are several solutions available for high water table conditions with septic tank almost on the verge of contamination. So there's a technology that DRDO developed, their lab in Gwalior, defense lab.
Mhm.
The scientists went to Antarctica and they found something interesting. They found that in Antarctica, the penguin waste used to disappear. They didn't find penguin waste. So then what happens to this penguin? They eat, and then where does their waste go? So they searched and found that there were organisms, bacteria, which were decomposing it very fast. So they brought the sample of those bacteria, adapted them in the lab, and developed the concept of biotoilet, which are used even in the trains. They licensed this technology to hundreds of entrepreneurs in the country. And these are like a syntax tank. You have a plastic tank has compartment, and the bacteria is mixed with the water and put there. You have the waste in the tank. You don't use septic tank of traditional kind. You have a plastic tank, or you can even use concrete tank, but these are closed tanks. And then the waste gets processed and the clean water comes out of it. Absolutely white, clean water comes out of it. Now, this is a technology that has been developed for conditions where we don't want the waste to seep into the underground water. For such conditions, this is very useful. And you know that Indian Railway is the largest distributor of E. coli in our country, because they used to empty and still do that in large number of trains. They empty the waste on the railway lines, and when the rain comes and it distributes the E. coli to the entire region nearby. So a lot of gastrointestinal infections take place because of E. coli distributed by our railway system. Now they're using biotoilets, because biotoilet digest with proper management much faster and in real time, so that they don't have to distribute the waste on the ground. So therefore, that is one solution that you can use. The other solution that has been developed by Regional Research Center of CSIR in Bhubaneswar and NIRI in Nagpur and a few other labs, you grow plant like canna. Canna is very good, and a few other plants. And the seepage water passes through the roots of these plants. And in the process, completely clean water, devoid of bacteria and other contaminant, comes on the other end. And this is normally, I have seen this about maybe, if you don't have shortage of land, then this will be about maybe 50 feet stretch of various kinds of plants through the root of which they were. And there's no smell at all. There's no smell. So it's another system of digestion, biodigestion by the plants. And there are a few other systems that we have. So this is possibly a way ahead. You need more. Well, the idea will be to discover cultural metaphors
in their story.
in that region where people paid a lot of attention to conservation of water and ask the question that why would 50 years ago or 100 years ago, such tales will emerge, such fables will emerge, such murals will emerge in the temples or in the churches, which signify the need for storing water. Why? Where was the need? When the population was much lesser, people were trying to store water, clean drinking water. Why would they do that if there was no concern? There was a concern, I'm sure. And most societies have had this concern around the world, not just in India, around the world. You know, the underground water tanks exist. And in fact, it was a very nice system. And of course, in Goa, you did not have underground tank. There was no need. But there were water cisterns which were used to store water for clean water, so to say. Because in rains, the water would get polluted, as we all know. Water table will rise further. And the industrial effluents will get mixed with this water. So you can't really use hand pump in the rainy season. So people did find solutions for clean water during the season when the water was abundant and polluted.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone who has questions or suggestions or ideas to share with Anil sir, may please unmute yourself and speak.
Mansi, I think till such time someone else joins, let me take this opportunity. Thank you very much, Anil sir, for a very insightful session, especially from the grassroots. And you rightly said, like for Simmer, of course, you specifically spoke about goalies. That was very, very relevant. But overall, I think communities did grow up around water resources and lived sustainability for ages, till we had the industrial revolution and we started and we got the piped water system and the apathy. My question to you, Anil sir, is about the Jal Jeevan mission. So you're joining us from Gujarat, but of course, Gujarat, we say that almost 90% of the rural households have water on tap. So the whole apathy that humans have towards the common property resources and water bodies has actually started from the time people distanced themselves from our water resources. And now the rural areas also we are providing. While I would say that, yes, it does help in sort of getting rid of a lot of other drudgery which was associated, related to the water, and especially drudgery of women. How do you see the Jal Jeevan mission in Gujarat? Because I have had experience in other states, talking to the PhD engineers and all. How do you see it panning in Gujarat? And do you see people being involved in source sustainability at all?
We did a study some years ago, and we looked at some case studies in Gujarat and Rajasthan. We made a small platform called as Knowledge H2O. So I will just show you these case studies for 1 minute and Knowledge H2O. So this is Knowledge H2O. And the reports and various studies that we did are described here about VIDA and everything else. Now, one of the innovation here is that in Gujarat, some people realized that level not being uniform in the village, the distribution pipes will not deliver the same pressure of water to everybody. That's a common problem. So there were several solutions found by people, and they devise these solutions, not the government. So one is that you have a main delivery pipe at a particular level all through the village in the center, and then from there you take pipes, lateral pipes, and you raise it to the level of the last house. So that is the pressure that everybody else will get because it is raised to that level. So that's one system they followed and solved the problem of conflicts because some people were getting low pressure, some people were getting high pressure. Second problem was that there's an uncertainty sometime in starting the water supply. because there are overhead tanks, person starts late, or sometimes water coming from another distributory, and then that water starts late. So they developed a very simple automatic SMS system that they put up by one small mobile phone attached to the distribution point, and when the water comes, or when the water has to just start, everybody gets a message that water going to start next in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and everybody down gets ready, so that you don't have to wait indefinitely. You get ready. So that was another, using ICTs for letting everybody know when the water will be used. In Meghalaya, we came across a solution which is relevant actually for Gujarat also. Meghalaya Cherrapunji actually is receiving 35,000 millimeter rain, but there's a shortage of water there. You will be surprised to know that in Cherrapunji, there's a shortage of water in the city. People have to have long queues of buckets. So one idea was that you put a small system in the hand pump, in the tap, because initially when water comes, the air will come, and this air will blow the whistle, and let everybody will know now that water is coming, and then they will be able to get water from the tap. I mean, they will get ready for their buckets and everything to collect the water. So there are many innovations, small things that people have tried. The fact is that distribution of water is no less a problem than supply of water. And while government can ensure distribution, government has to recognize that people have to solve, but government can probably ensure supply, but the people have to ensure distribution. And unless you have a fair distribution, systems don't sustain. So many times they come into disuse, or the water supply systems break down, or in Ladakh, one example came, one child said, why don't you put water filter in the tank itself? Why should every user have a water filter at their home? Now, common sense, that kid was clever. We gave him an award, Ignite Award, but we have not done it. I mean, a clean drinking water is a right, but most tanks do not have water treatment facilities. To the best of my knowledge, I may be wrong, but we are passing on we are missing the simple point that when you do it at aggregate level, the cost is less. When you do it at a distributed level, the cost is much more. And not everybody can afford the water filter, a good quality water filter. And the result is some people get good quality water and some people don't. That is a consequence of not paying attention to the last mile. And the last example, there was a study by MIT, and I was advising that study, and they found that the maximum contamination of water takes place at the last edge. What is the last point? From pitcher to the glass of water. So the ladle through which you take the water out from the pot is hung outside. When it is hung outside of the stand, it gathers dust and the bacteria. And these organisms then contaminate the water when you take the water from that ladle from the pots. So it was the last edge, last 1 foot of the water supply that was causing the pollution, and we have not paid attention to many of these things. So they showed attention. Another point is that in Gujarat, we have a serious problem. Recently, High Court had to stop many factories which are releasing effluent in what I will call a Sabarmati lake. There is no river actually, lake around which we have the settlement, so-called riverfront, actually the lakefront. Nice lakefront, I mean, very nice place. But then people are releasing water without treatment, and the High Court asked those factories to be closed down. They said, you close the point of sewage emission in the lake, and government had to, CPCB had to do it as per force the court order. So, I mean, there are a lot of edges to the water supply mission, and water supply is one part of it, but ensuring sources to be clean, ensuring people who use it use the right method, ensuring that there are institution building, these things I would say can be strengthened. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much. And so happy to know that at least Ahmedabad Vasis are blessed to call Sabarmati Lake. We in Delhi have Yamuna Nala, so the sewer.
Because we have got the Narmada water in Sabarmati actually.
Yes, that's why we still are not Nala.
Yeah, because it is a Narmada, clean water of Narmada, high quality Narmada water comes in this Sabarmati river.
And then rots reserves. Then it is rotting in the lake, actually.
Unfortunately, because of the effluent being released without treatment. That's a very, but recently High Court has taken some very, very valid steps.
Very strong
I hope
steps.
that every city will do that.
Absolutely, I think.
Incidentally, just one small, there is a Caliban river in Punjab, Jalandhar, and our friend, I'm forgetting his name, one saint, a Sikh saint, his name will come in a minute. So we went there. We started our Jalandhar Shodh Yatra from his ashram. So what he did, he put the old pieces of cloth in the pipes from which the drainage used to come to the river and drain the river. So in the houses of the people in Jalandhar city, the sewage started coming up in the toilets because the exit was blocked. People complained, said, no, nothing doing. You cannot release wastewater in the river. So that river became white river, Caliban. The black river became white, but through the effort of this, our friend, we have honored him with such a samman. The name is skipping me. But if you write Caliban River, Jalandhar, you will find his name very quickly. Very nice. And through community action, he converted the river into clean. So yeah, Sichwala, Baba Sichwala. That's right, Baba Sichwala. Chinnamay, yes, you were there. Thank you so much for remembering. Sichwala. Yes. Sorry, you were saying something and I stopped.
No, I think we take a few more questions if you are all right. Let's see, Bibu, you want to go next?
Can I come in then?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead. Bibu?
Yeah, I think Mr. Nanak wanted to speak, so I think.
Okay. Yes,
You
go
can
ahead,
carry on,
Mr.
Bibu.
Nanak.
Bibu, yeah, Bibu, you can carry on.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful speech. We have, like, I think all of us are big fans and have immensely benefited from the database that SRISHTI and Honeybee have created. We use that extensively in our classroom discussions and, like, I mean, in all different ways to, like, I mean, tell the stories. This is wonderful job. But with all these things, like, something that still wonders, still I think worries me, like, I mean, I think it applies to all of us, people who are living in cities. The way, for instance, we use water. I live in Hyderabad. Like, I know that if I walk, like, I mean, 200 meters away from my apartment, there are people who do not have access to, like, I mean, piped water supply, or, like, I mean, but like that somehow doesn't like, I mean, affect the way we use the water. Like, we have running taps. I mean, like, maybe if we are conscious, we, like, I mean, make judicious use of it. But the huge pattern, like something that I keep telling to my students when my parents visit and mothers see that we are washing our utensils with running tap, and she gets so worried about this whole thing. But how do, like, I mean, but so I don't think like, I mean, there is any other, like, I mean, ways to do that probably, or maybe it is there, but like we are too lazy to adapt that. So how do we bring these traditional wisdom that like, I mean, say somebody like me who, like, I mean, like when my parents are here, they say that you can always take a bucket of water and use like wash your utensils, not on the running tap. But something like, maybe we do that for a couple of days, but they can revert back to the same process because, like, I mean, we don't see that scarcity. Like, I mean, there, like, I mean, thanks to the apartment or whatever, like, I mean, the system that we have in place. So how do we bring these thing into, like, I mean, say, like, I mean, more educated, or maybe, like, I mean, relatively well off people who have at least access to water?
I think it's a very nice question. Change, in 1984, I wrote a line, a change not monitored is a change not desired. So if you ask students and to make a budget of their water use for last 1 week, and they calculate, for example, I asked my students, their consumption was about 200 liters per person per day. And the inner city, they don't get even 20 liters per person. So idea was just to help them see this contradiction. And they used to have a ritual of throwing water on each other at a particular time. There was a word they used for that kind of game they played from one dormitory to another and so on. So I requested them to look at the data, and then they did both. They did the monitoring of electricity consumption in the dorms, and they did the water consumption, and then tried to share the data. I said, don't do anything, just share the data. Similarly, in mess, there were food waste. So I suggest some students many years ago, they started weighing the waste and putting the number. That's all. No advice, no suggestion, nothing. Just data. Just giving information. Yesterday was 50 kg of waste. Today is 46 kg. And if it is slightly going down, you feel hopeful that people are beginning to learn. So one suggestion I have is that we must encourage young people to monitor their own and their family's conduct. The second thing that they can do, and our students organized a competition once, many years, 85, 86 batch I'm talking about. Asim Prakash was there. He's now a professor in Washington State University and writes a column in Washington Post. So he and his colleagues did a small competition, and then on every mirror behind the wash basin, they put that sticker, stop it. The drop of water which is going out from the tap. There was a tap made, the sticker on the tap. On the sticker, there was a tap and a drop of water from the tap, stop it. Idea was that stop the tap when you're not using it. When you're brushing your teeth, the tap can be off. There's no need for it to be on. They put it on every mirror in the dormitories and in faculty washrooms and so on. It helps, it reminds you. Some people will get influenced by that message every day, but not everybody, but many people will get influenced. It is not that people want to waste, it is just that they don't realize it every day. So I believe, I'm a great believer in the positive spirit of humankind. I believe that everybody wants to be a good human being. That's my belief. Everybody wants to be a good human being. They're just not being reminded that they are actually good human beings and that their actions can be beautiful. And these actions can be small actions, monitoring, tracking, reminding. And eventually the data will tell them that this is what it is going to happen. We can also make some effort to make them see the reality of those who don't have enough water, so that in their consciousness, I take my students for city walk. When for last 2 years, we have not done it in Cine courts. I take them for a walk. Those who can't come with me to Himalaya, they take this course Cine. And we walk in the city, inner city, and then they observe people, how they manage to live with small pots of water and firewood and all of that. So they realize that there is an age, there's some people living in the wood age, not even iron age in that sense, they're living. And there are other people who are using gas and everything else. So it is useful that we take the students for a walk through some part of city where the people are facing shortages or the consequence of bad water. You know, parts of Gormana River around Delhi is black waters. Just toward Noida side, it's black, complete dirty water. And the students should see that these vegetables that they consume, I mean, they should go to Bagpat and see that vegetables growing there are washed in that dirty water. And these vegetables are being sold in their neighborhood. They should see that. Once they see that, they will realize what they're going through. So there is, encounter approach. we need to confront reality. There is not much that we can teach in the classroom, but we can certainly help people become more aware, our young people become more aware of the great injustice we are doing to ourselves by not looking at the reality and trying to make a small difference. A small difference by many people, small differences can aggregate into a big difference, So we should not always expect revolutionary changes. Incremental changes by small, large number of students in the class, by when they share their assignments, makes a difference. And I would strongly urge, I'll give you a small example. I was teaching a course at IIT Bombay 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, with Kachaku in the Industrial Design Center. And this was on technology, innovation, and design. So I asked the students, who eats the cold food? It's a small digression, but just to give you a pedagogic tool as to how we did it. So I said, who eats the cold food? So of course, children said, mother. I said, then mother must have done a crime. They gave you birth, they sent you to IIT, and then she gets cold food. So for 1 week, all of you, there were 200 students, 200 odd. I said, all of you are going to cook hot food for her. And you will upload the pictures of the first bread you made and the food that you cooked and the last one and the environment and everything. And mind you, they did it because that was an assignment. They had to do it. I tell you, they noticed so many things. They noticed, for example, that जो बेलन होता है ना, उसकी ऊंचाई कम थी, तो मदर को सामने झुकना पड़ता था ना. अब जब उनको झुकना पड़ा तो उनको तकलीफ दिख रही है. इतने दिन से माता खाना बना रही थी, दिखता नहीं था उनको. दिखता था तो दुखता नहीं था, दिखता था दुखता नहीं था, अब दिखा भी और दुखा भी. And I tell you, what else could we have done to make them realize that then when they have gender injustice in their own home, they have no right to talk about gender justice in the world. अरे अपनी माँ के साथ अन्याय कर रहे हो तुम लोग यार, तो तुम बाकी दुनिया में क्या न्याय करोगे? अपनी कोलीग के साथ, अपनी क्लास वालों के साथ क्या न्याय करोगे? नहीं कर सकते, गलत बात है ये सब. So sometimes one has to take hard core pedagogical exercises to help the students discover that there is no better way of learning than confronting the paradoxes of our life. What else teacher can do actually? This is the minimum we can do, and this is the power we have, and we must use this power.
Absolutely. We have to make realize water measurement, and you started with that line, water budget, and we can have micro budgets for everyone. And I am also trying to make students do their water footprint for the entire semester, week, one day, whatever is the course outline. I think as teachers, we can do this little bit, but the important part here is that the people at their own end, if they are ethically thinking, they are actually trying to innovate, and that is what we have been talking about. So somewhere this ethical capital needs to be built, and the onus comes back to mothers, onus comes back to teachers, because these are the, I think, two fraternities who are not looking for returns out of what they give to the society.
Very nice, very right, very well said.
So this is where I think we have to really take extra responsibility, both as I will say mentor teachers, and also women have, and feminists for that matter. Why to talk about women generally only? So we have this extra responsibility. On one hand, we have these large infrastructures, devastations going on, but that should not stop us doing from the small little things which we can do. Because at the end of the day, I always keep thinking, even we have to actually, defend our soul. Even if we cannot change anything in the society, we have to talk to our soul at some point.
You know, Mansi, K.L. Munshi, yes. You know, the famous novelist, yes. And he was the food minister in 1952. And he gave a lecture on Gospel of Dirty Hand. And he said he made 3 circles: water cycle, nutrient cycle, and village community. And you know, he developed the concept of land army. And what would land army do? Please, most of you may not have read this, most of you may not be aware, but the first unit of land army was set up in 1952, a year before I was born. And this went to Chhatarpur drain. They were the students mobilized together into a brigade. They went to Chhatarpur drain outside Delhi to clean it. And he said, K. Munshi said, that you will find in a village the wastewater accumulating in front of the house of the poor. Never again in the front of house of rich, because they will raise the level of the pathway in front of their house. So he said, unless and until we can clean that drainage, the society will become sick. So this is something as early as 1952, he was saying that. And I must say that it is important for our students and young scholars to recognize these contradictions and see the connection between nutrient cycle, water cycle, and the community relationship. And every society, housing society, should try to make water budget and put it up on their wall and try. I mean, we should try. We cannot ensure, but we can try. And drinking water for the poor, for the vendors, for the people on the street. There are small steps, but once you share, you also care.
Yes.
You see, caring is not possible without sharing.
Yes, absolutely.
And we need to share our life space. We need to share our own consciousness. I'm sure young people are more optimistic than us and more courageous than us, hopefully.
I hope so. We have to be hopeful. I think hope is an important pillar of our survival.
Absolutely.
So I think with these lines, we will bring an end to the session, sir. And it's wonderful having you here. And I know I have extra privilege to be directly in contact with you whenever I wish to, but it's really, really nice for all of us to really have you here for this beginning of the new year and also hear from you. And I see now there's a hand raised. Probably people are warming up now. Would you like to take some questions, sir?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Radhika, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was waiting for the others
Okay,
to finish their questions. Sorry.
Go ahead.
But Anil sir, I mean, this was a fantastic session. I mean, there were so many nuggets of wisdom. I think, it's a really, really enjoyable session. I think I think a few things stood out for me is like the voice, visibility, and velocity. I think the innovations that you have mentioned are so simple and but so much of change can be possible through those innovations. I guess my question to you is, how do you give those innovations velocity? How do you help them scale? What do you do? I think, I mean, that because I think that's really important to see scale on a large to see these change on a large scale.
So there's a triangle on the screen. This is the triangle 1997 when we set up GYAN. This was the philosophy of GYAN, to connect innovation, investment, and enterprise. And as you can see, investment, not just financial, material, intellectual. Enterprise, not just economic, but social, cultural, ecological. Innovation, not just informal, but also formal. Not just technological, but institutional, educational, and others. Now, this triangle implies that the transaction cost, ex-ante transaction cost and ex-post transaction cost are very high for each one of the vector. Innovator would not know who the entrepreneur is. He wouldn't know, she wouldn't know where the investor is, and so also for the other people. Now, who would like to invest in a common property resource solution where there is no one individual going to benefit, but together, if they do together, they can benefit. And in some cases, like in solar, some societies have set up a solar grid on the roofs and they share electricity. You can do it individually, you can do it collectively, depends, and you get credit for that. Similarly, if we push for a policy where municipal corporations will give incentives for water saving, substantial water saving beyond a particular threshold value. So that is one way in which one can try to find ways to give velocity to the idea of conservation. Similarly, one can also try and provide, I remember when our commissioner, D. Tara was the commissioner of Ahmedabad, and I invited, because our institute wanted the Narmada water. We were using groundwater. Groundwater is not good, and we had all the problems. She came, and we invited for dinner. After talking, she said, I will certainly facilitate your getting access to the Narmada water, but you must improve your waste disposal. You are not segregating your waste. You are not supplying the waste in a wet and dried separately, and you're not doing your own digestion, etc., etc. And I said, Tara, I will support you in this regard. I will push you not to give water to us till we do this, because our administrative officer was sitting there. I said, look, I know I have been persuading you to do many of these things, but you will not do that. Now that you need water and she's willing to give you water, you better do all the things that she's putting condition on. So sometimes optimal coercion is not zero. Optimal coercion is not zero. To give velocity to idea, we have to use some kind of coercive steps. And these coercive steps, for example, public institutions say, we will not let you come in unless you have double vaccination. That's a coercion, but it's a desirable coercion. Similarly, for water, we will have to create coercive steps. Incentives, but sanctions both have to go hand in hand. Only incentive will not help. I mean, after all, we do sometimes talk to our children a little hard, and we sometimes talk to them softly, and not one way of talking always helps. So we need both kinds of instruments. Of course, in our municipality, Chanakya said, Sam, Dam, Dand, Ved, all the four, we may have to use different strategies to bring our behavior in alignment with our goal. Another way to give velocity is to highlight the positive actions, to share how different societies have brought down their water consumption, how they have repurposed the wastewater. They put a separate line for kitchen and bathroom water. Today, in my house, unfortunately, I must admit, very candidly, self-critically, that the water from the wastewater from the kitchen and the bathroom goes into the same drain where other water is going, which is very unfortunate, which is very tragic. And I have not yet succeeded, but I'm going to succeed one day, when we will make sure that the water from kitchen and bathroom goes separately into a tank where I can treat it and use it for my garden rather than using other water for the garden. So there are steps that we need to take. I'll have to take, all of us will have to take, and share those steps. We should also facilitate access to those solutions, technologies, so that people can use them easily. Digesters at a household level, digesters will have to be shared. I have a big container where all bio waste is put, and with little water sprinkled on that, it gets converted into manure. I make my own compost on my household waste. So there are a lot of things that we can do to bring about these solutions, but many more solutions are required. And I think with Terry involved in it, if we try to create a common public database of practices by individuals and institutions in urban areas as well as rural areas, which are functional. They may not be very innovative, but they are good practices. There are something which are positive. I think we can bring about a lot of change. I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Radhika. Sorry for this misunderstanding. Thank you so much, Anil sir. Just a short announcement for the next session that we have a very interesting session coming up on emerging pollutants in water. So please join on January 12th. And the follow-up session will be bioenzyme as one of the solutions to look at water pollution. So we have these two interesting sessions, and then we are really looking for the 26th January another mega session coming up. So thank you again, all of you, and thanks a lot, Anil sir, for taking out time for us. I knew that you were going to travel, and thankfully, and for us, that the travel got postponed, and you have better network here.
Yes,
Otherwise, you were going to be in Jammu and Kashmir, and I would have been really going after you for your network. So that way it worked well for us, but I hope you have safe travels coming soon. And I hope that you also get a lot of letters and emails from us here who have joined you to get more about your work. I have put all the information of sir in the chat box here. If any one of you need all the links which sir has been working on for all his life. Sir, you reminded me not only about Eleanor Ostrom's lecture 11 years ago I took with her, but you also brought me back Oliver Williamson's work on transaction cost.
Right,
so I was
right,
like,
right.
I was floating between Williamson sir and Ostrom. Where to go?
Yes, you're right. You're right. And both Lynn and Vincent were very dear friends. I've stayed with them, and right way back in '84 when they were not known.
Oh my God!
And
long.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a long
I think I went 25 years after you. So
yes.
So it's long time ago. But you reminded me of her lectures, which I took. That was her last semester lecture, Y673. And all these words were, like coming back and forth in my mind, like as if all of you, these common property resource scholars, are coming together and talking about doing something from the grassroots. I think we have to really talk about more a bottom-up approach, even if we want to see some changes in the way government functions, because government is nothing but we, the people. So if we want government to change in a way we would like to see change in the society, we have to first bring the change. And that's where comes the two important capital. Anil sir was also talking about the social capital and the ethical capital. Social capital is important to work together, but ethical capital, I think corruption is also a social capital for that matter. So we have to really have ethical capital along with the social capital. Otherwise, as I mentioned, that social capital can be also sometimes very, very difficult for us to really maintain, because it goes on consensus. It does not go on what is the best option available to us. So with these lines, I would really like all of you to really think about these things. How can we bring more bottom-up approach? How can we document, disseminate, appreciate what people do at their own scale, at their own neighborhood, at their own self, to conserve water and bring those values not only to the younger generation, but also to the people around. Even padosi ko se bhi jhagda karna pade, to please do that jhagda. It is worth it if it is about saving water. So thank you very much, all of you, for your love and support for all these months to have these Wednesdays for Water meetings. You know that we are meeting every Wednesday. So it's just to increase the water literacy. It's just to walk and talk water with all of you. And thank you, Anil sir, once again for being with us, and very happy New Year to all of you. Please take care of yourself, and thank you once again to all of you. Bye.
All the success to you, Mansi. I appreciate your effort which you're doing, and I'm very inspired by your efforts. Thank you so much. Keep it up. All the energy to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, presenters, for joining us today and enlightening us with your wisdom. Also, thank you all the participants for joining us and making the session interactive. Besides walking and talking water, worries and wisdoms collectively, we see this as a platform to cross-connect and expand our network and explore possible collaborations. We are also making notes to publish both scientific and non-scientific work. Here is a glimpse of some of our writings. You may reach us through email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also look at our website www.w4w.in. We look forward to your suggestions and comments to make the series more meaningful and engaging. And meanwhile, we hope that you appreciate today's session. We represent Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Hyderabad, Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, Environmental Design Consultants, Ahmedabad, FluxGen Sustainable Technologies, Bangalore, Counterview, and we are supported by Wiki's Water Resources Council. We truly appreciate your support and encouragement in conducting this series, and we hope that you will stay tuned with us through our social media platforms and our website, and you will write to us at our email IDs.